There is a kitchen sponge sitting in a white bowl on my counter. It is the ordinary yellow kind from an American supermarket, and it has been used for 1 week. I am going to leave it right there while we talk, and near the end, I will tell you what a German university found when they cut one like it open. It is the reason this whole list exists. Come in, shoes off at the step, the kettle is on. I am Haruko Tanaka. I was raised by my grandmother in a farmhouse in rural Japan, and I moved to the United States in my 30s. And the first American kitchen I ever stood in taught me more about Japan than 20 years of living there had. Today, 11 kitchen rules that nearly every Japanese home keeps, and nearly every American home breaks. Counted down to 1. Before the list, the thread that ties all 11 together, because without it, this is just 11 tips. In a Japanese kitchen, moisture is the enemy. Water that sits overnight is where smell, slime, and mold begin, and so the whole kitchen is arranged around one quiet goal. Everything is dry by morning. Every rule tonight is a way of getting there. If you remember nothing else, remember those 4 words. And it is not fussiness. Mold begins to be a real risk once indoor humidity passes about 60%, and building scientists put the critical level for growth on surfaces at around 70. The American EPA says to keep a home at or below 60, ideally between 30 and 50. In Japan, where summers are wet and heavy, mold thrives above 60 and races above 80. So a hygrometer on the wall is normal household equipment. The kitchen is the wettest room in the house. That is why the rules are strictest there. Number 11. 2 cloths, never 1. In a Japanese kitchen, the fukin is the cloth for dishes, food and the table, and the zokin is the cloth for floors and dirt, and the 2 are never confused. When a fukin grows more dingy, a fresh one takes over the dishes and the old one is demoted to wiping the counter and the table. Never the other direction. An American kitchen often has one rag that does everything. That is the first rule broken. Here is the why of it. The dishcloth touches what you eat from. The floor cloth touches what you walk on. A cloth that has gone down can never come back up, because whatever it has picked up comes with it. The good Japanese fukin brands are sold on 2 things only: how much water they absorb and how fast they dry, which tells you what the cloth is for. It is there to carry water away and then to be dry again before it is needed. There is a third cloth worth naming, the Sarashi. It is plain white cotton, loosely woven, named for the sun bleaching that whitens it, and the loose weave is the point. It takes up water fast and gives it up fast. In the kitchen, it strains dashi stock, squeezes the water out of cooked spinach, drains tofu, lines a steamer, and wipes the tools when the cooking is done. Some people use a square of it as a coffee filter, washed and hung, over and over. Nothing in it holds water for long. That is why it is trusted. Number 10. Boil the cloth. Once a week in a Japanese home, the dishcloths go into a pot of water with a spoon of baking soda called juso and are boiled, which lifts the gray and kills the smell that builds in a kitchen cloth. The other common method is a soak in diluted chlorine bleach. My grandmother did the pot on Sundays, and the kitchen smelled of hot cotton. An American cloth is usually washed when it looks dirty, which is a week too late. Here is the why of it, with a number. Research on kitchen towels found that a wet towel at room temperature can grow millions of bacteria in about 2 hours, and that the common ones recovered include E. coli, Staphylococcus, and Salmonella. The same work found that hanging tea towels to dry for 24 hours at room temperature cut the bacteria roughly 1,000-fold. So the boil kills what is there, and the drying stops it coming back. Both halves matter. Boiling a cloth and leaving it wet is only half a rule. One small detail that does a great deal. A cloth is hung open, flat, on a rail or a line, never folded over itself and never balled up on the edge of the sink. Folded, the inside stays wet while the outside dries, and the inside is where the trouble lives. Open, air reaches both sides, and the cloth is dry in hours. It costs nothing, and it takes 2 seconds, and it is the difference between a cloth that smells by Wednesday and one that never does. Number 9. A brush, not a sponge. The Tawashi is a small oval scrubber of palm fiber twisted around a wire frame, and the famous one, the Kaminoko Tawashi, was invented in 1907 by a man named Nishio Shozaemon. He had been making palm fiber doormats that kept flattening and coming back. His wife Yasu cut a piece from a returned mat, curved it, and used it to scrub the lattice of a shoji screen. He saw it and twisted the fiber tight into the shape it still has today. Kame no ko means baby turtle for the shape, and the company took a turtle as its mark, because turtles mean good fortune in Japan. Utility approval in 1908, a patent in 1915, and the design essentially unchanged since. Here is why it belongs on a list about moisture. Palm fiber does not hold water the way a sponge does. It drains and dries in hours. A sponge holds its water all night, and you will hear in a minute what that means. Number 8. Mizukiri. The word is water, mizu, and to cut, kiru, cutting the water. It is the name of the dish drainer, and it is also the idea behind it. Washed dishes go into the rack to drain and air dry, bowls face down, chopsticks standing up, and they are not towel-dried wet. Because a wet towel, on a wet dish, moves the water around rather than removing it. The rack does the work, and the air finishes it, and by morning there is nothing left to dry. Notice the positions in that rack, because they are not decoration. Bowls and cups go upside down, so water runs off the rim instead of pooling in the bottom. Chopsticks and spoons stand up in a cup with holes, so the water runs down and out. Plates stand on edge. Everything is placed so that gravity finishes the job. A cup left the right way, up in a rack, will have a little pool in it by morning, and a little pool by morning is exactly the thing this whole list is against. Number 7. Tame-Arai, the basin wash. Instead of running the tap through the whole job, a small basin, the arai oak, sits in the sink with warm water and a little detergent. Every dish is scrubbed into that basin and set aside, and at the very end everything gets one fast rinse. This is the ordinary way to wash dishes by hand in Japan. It uses a fraction of the water, and it also means the sink is not running wet for 20 minutes every evening. Some numbers carefully. Tokyo's waterworks puts household water use in the city at about 200 liters per person per day. The American EPA puts home water use at 82 gallons per person per day, which is about 310 liters. The two are not measured the same way. so I will not flatten them into one tidy percentage. The direction is clear enough, and only about 37% of Japanese households own a dishwasher, against nearly 70% in America. Did your house growing up use a dishwasher every day, or was washing up by hand the rule? I would like to hear what that looked like in the comments. Most of Japan washes in a basin. One more number belongs here because it explains the rhythm of the kitchen. The average Japanese refrigerator holds about 230 liters, and roughly a fifth of the refrigerators sold are under 100 liters. A small cold box means shopping often, and keeping little means less sits long enough to go wet and sour. It is the same thread again, less standing, less moisture, less trouble by morning. I will say this once, and get back to the list. Folks ask where my house system is written down, and there is a small book linked below that sets it out plainly. This kitchen, and the rooms I did not get to today. It is there if you want it. Now, number 6, and this one is about the corner of the sink. Number 6, the Sankaku Corner. A small triangular basket that sits in the corner of the sink and catches peelings and scraps before they reach the drain or the bin. Almost every Japanese kitchen has one, and the newer ones float or hang by a magnet or take a disposable mesh liner. Also, the basket itself does not sit in water-growing slime. It is emptied every night, not when it is full. Every night. Here is the why of it. Wet kitchen waste, Nama-Gomi, is the thing that smells in a warm kitchen, and in Japan it is drained of its water before it goes in the bag, and often wrapped in newspaper to take up what is left. Burnable rubbish is collected only once or twice a week in most towns, and the rules say it must be sorted and drained of liquid before it goes out. An American bin with wet scraps in it sits for days. That is where the smell comes from, and the smell is moisture. And the rubbish itself is sorted, which is a habit Americans find either charming or maddening. Burnable, which is food, paper, wood and natural cloth. Non-burnable, resources, meaning cans, bottles, and plastic for recycling. Bulky items, hazardous. The exact categories, the bags and the collection days differ from town to town, so I will not give you a single rule. But the effect in the kitchen is the same everywhere. Wet food waste is kept apart, kept small, and kept dry, because it will wait days for the truck. Number 5. The drain. A Japanese sink has a basket in the drain to catch what gets past the corner, and inside it usually a disposable mesh net like a large tea bag that is changed often. The basket is cleaned with its own small brush from the 100 yen shop, and its own cloth or sponge. Never the dish sponge, often with baking soda for the grit. If the basket is left, it grows a slime the Japanese call numeri, and then it smells, and then the whole kitchen does. Notice the rule inside the rule. The drain has its own brush and its own cloth, and the dish sponge never goes near it. That is the two cloths rule again. Number 11. Applied to the lowest, wettest place in the kitchen. Everything that touches the drain stays with the drain. I am not telling you Americans have dirty kitchens. I am telling you that the Japanese kitchen draws lines between wet places and clean places, and keeps them, every day, without thinking about it. I want to say something here, because by this point in a list like this, people start to feel scolded. If your kitchen smells by the end of the week, you did nothing wrong. Nobody told you that moisture was the thing. You were sold sponges that hold water, sprays that cover smell, and a drain you were never shown how to open. You have been cleaning correctly for years with tools that were never designed for the actual problem. The problem is water that sits. Once you know that, everything else is small. We are about at the middle, so let me stop and ask. Tell me in the comments what country you are watching from, and which of these 11 your kitchen already does. I read every one, and I am always surprised by how many of these rules turn out to be somebody's grandmother's rules in Ohio, or Portugal, or Kerala, under another name. Number 4. Netu Shodoku. Boiling water over the cutting board. In Japan, the board is washed with warm soapy water first, and then, regularly, boiling water is poured over it to sanitize it. For the synthetic rubber boards many Japanese kitchens use, the makers say keep the water under 90 degrees Celsius and do both sides, or the board warps. For a hinoki cypress board, the rule has a trap in it. Soap first. Always soap first. Here is the why of it, and it is the kind of detail that makes a rule real. If boiling water hits a wooden board that still has food on it, the proteins from meat or fish cook and harden into the cut marks, and instead of killing bacteria, you have given them a sealed home. So soap lifts the food, then heat does the killing, and then the board dries. Some kitchens use diluted kitchen bleach instead of the kettle. Either way, the order is wash, sanitize, dry. Never heat first. Number 3. Stand the board up. After washing, a wooden board is stood on its edge, with the grain running up and down, so the water runs down through the grain and off the bottom edge. Lying flat, water sits in the wood. Some Japanese boards have a small wooden peg on one edge so the board stands with air underneath. It dries in the shade, not the sun, which would crack it. And it is never put away flat in a cabinet while there is any damp in it. Wood in a Japanese kitchen is chosen for what it does with water. The hungiri, the wide shallow cypress tub that sushi rice is cooled in, is wood and not plastic for one reason. The wood drinks the extra moisture out of the hot rice so it does not go soggy. A home one is about 30 centimeters across. So the same material that pulls water out of rice will hold water in a cabinet if you let it. Stand it up, let it breathe, and the wood works for you instead of against you. Number 2. The rice cooker's inner lid. Japanese appliance and cleaning guides are specific about this. The most overlooked mold trap in a Japanese kitchen is not the pot of the rice cooker, which everyone washes, but the inner lid, the uchibuta, where steam and starch collect in the grooves and seams, hidden and easy to underwash. The guides say take the lid and its seal apart, wash them fully, sterilize with hot water, and use citric acid or baking soda for smell. Discoloration means act now. Here is the why, and it is the thread in its sharpest form. The moisture you can see on the counter, on the board you wipe. The moisture you cannot see is what gets you. A rice cooker lid is warm, wet, and dark, and it is closed up the moment the rice is done. The Japanese sources put it bluntly, that mold in a rice cooker is a real risk of food poisoning, which is why they say to act at the first spot. Open the lid, dry it, and leave it open overnight. Dry by morning, even in the dark places. Number 1. Go and look at that sponge. In 2017, scientists at Furtwangen University in Germany, led by a microbiologist named Markus Egert, took 14 used kitchen sponges from ordinary households and sequenced the DNA of what lived in them. They found 362 different species of bacteria. A piece of sponge the size of a sugar cube can hold as many as 54 billion of them. More variety than is usually found on a toilet. And here is the finding that explains this whole list. 2 of the 10 most common species were found in greater numbers on sponges that their owners regularly cleaned by microwaving or boiling them. Cleaning without drying did not solve it. The sponge went back into the sink, wet, and the survivors had it to themselves. That is why a Japanese kitchen uses a brush that drains, a cloth that is boiled and then hung, a board that stands up, and a sink wiped dry at night. Kill it, yes. But dry it, always dry by morning. And to be fair to the sponge, because I still own one for the greasy pan. If you keep one, it is wrung out hard after every use, stood on its edge where air can reach it, never left lying in the sink, and thrown away every week, not when it looks tired. A sponge is not the enemy. A wet sponge, lying flat, for 7 days is. The rule is the same as for everything else in this kitchen. Use it, dry it, and let it go before it goes bad. My grandmother's last chore every night before the lamp went out was to wipe the sink dry with a cloth, wring the cloth, and hang it on the rail. I thought it was a habit. It was the whole system. Nothing in her kitchen was wet when she went to bed, and nothing in it ever smelled. She did not know the word bacteria. She knew that water left alone goes bad, and she did not leave it alone. And the honest limit, because every method has one. These 11 rules keep a kitchen dry and clean and sweet-smelling. They do not fix a leaking pipe, or a basement that floods, or a dishwasher with a broken seal. If your kitchen smells of damp and you have done all 11, the water is coming from somewhere the cloth cannot reach, and you need a plumber, not a brush. And if you live in Arizona in July, your problem is not humidity. Use what fits your house. So here is one thing to do tonight, and it costs nothing. Before you turn out the kitchen light, wipe the sink dry, wring the cloth, and hang it open where air can reach it. Throw out that sponge, or at least stand it on its edge to drain. That is all. Tomorrow morning, look at the sink. If it is dry, you have started. Everything else on this list is just that, done in more places. And one last thing before I let you go. Earlier, I asked for your country. Now I would like the rest of the story. Which of these 11 was already your habit? Which one surprised you, and which one your own grandmother did, under another name, in another kitchen, on another continent? Put it in the comments. I read them all, slowly, with tea. I learn from you, and that is not politeness. It is true. The cloth is hanging on the rail above my sink, and it will be dry by morning, and it will be there next time too. Dry by morning, and start again tomorrow. That is the whole of it. Come back and see me. I will be right here, in this small kitchen, with the kettle on.